Hi, my name's Eric, welcome back to my channel. Let's talk about Tinashe. I got multiple comments recently asking me to react to Tinashe, specifically to her early mixtapes, and I thought, how perfect, because I love Tinashe, but I've only listened to the music she's released since Aquarius. So this is a great opportunity for me to dive into her lyrical themes and see how she's developed over the last, 8 years? As always, if you have any requests for albums you'd like me to react to and analyze, let me know in the comments down below, and please subscribe if you'd like to be here when I talk about subsequent Tinashe projects like Reverie. Without further ado, let's dive right into track number 1, The Last Night on Earth. So I heard a mention of a green cloud, which is pretty obviously a reference to smoking weed. She's talking about being overwhelmed, in the context of the end of the world, which is what the title refers to because this was 2012, like the 2012 apocalypse theories. She's talking about being overwhelmed by basically things that are apocalyptic in scale. We also get that from the sound of the track with this wall of synths that's very overwhelming, just like she's talking about being overwhelmed. So the frame for the mixtape maybe is her smoking and getting high and what happens in that high, or maybe she's just trying to distract herself from the literal end of the world by, indulging. Okay, so she's in this sort of high, like a dream state, and now she's declaring her love. Often in music or movies or things like that, a declaration of love that happens in the context of being like high or drunk or something like that isn't really substantial. Also, we get that from the fact that she's connecting the idea of being love, comparing it to a high, and she's talking about feeling unstable, like the walls are moving, and so she's like standing on unstable ground because of this high, and if she's connecting the love to that high, then the love can also be interpreted as being unstable. Okay, so she mentioned like anchors and police. Again, it's this sort of doomsday scenario where figures of authority are saying like, it's the end, all hope is lost, but maybe she's trying to push against that. Also, her vocals are really gorgeous. She sounds younger on this mixtape, which is so cute. But her style and the sort of inflections that she has have remained the same. Her sort of tics as a vocalist are very distinctive, and I really enjoy hearing how she's preserved that through her career. Track number 2, keeping with the theme of inebriation, is called My High. Ooh. Nice switch in registers there. Wow, impressive low notes. Great range, as always. Okay, yeah, I love this already. I'm so impressed. I am more used to, in a lot of recent R&B, a very sparse approach. People like SZA like to sort of leave a lot of space for the vocals and for the words, but that's obviously a more recent trend, but here we have a lot of synths, we have a lot of sound going on, and just like on the last track she was talking about a high as a sort of illusion, here she's talking about a fantasy in that same vein. And also, if it's an illusion, it makes sense that she's begging this person right now to stay, because like if it's not real, then she has to do more work to make it feel real. She's so good. Oh my, this is so good. Okay, so she's submitting herself. Okay, the storm is coming without warning. Again, we have a portent of disaster, the same way that we have these sort of doomsday warnings. So again, in the context of a relationship, an emotional storm would probably be like a fight or a breakdown or something that threatens the relationship. So maybe then the central apocalypse of this story isn't like the world ending, it's like their world ending. So maybe she's using the end of the world as a metaphor for a breakup. Song number 3 is Let You Love Me. Okay, so driving away, we get in the context of an apocalypse, like this is literally an escape. But again, in the framework of the apocalypse as a metaphor for a breakup, if they are escaping the apocalypse, they're escaping the breakup. So she wants to escape like embrace escapism and fantasy as a way of basically delaying or trying to work against the forces that are causing this possible breakup. And especially in the context of like this nice luxurious feeling, like the valet and the sort of indulgence that has been present so far, it feels very much like a couple's efforts to patch up their relationship. More towards rap here. Okay, nice internal rhyme there, but she's also acknowledging that basically she's not thinking rationally. And that makes sense in the context of this landscape that she's built for us with these, fantasies and highs and the apocalyptic chaos that's going on. But here she's literally contorting herself in service of this person and in a moment of clarity asking herself, what am I doing? Wow. This electric guitar sound reminds me of Bet, which is from Aquarius. Wow. So she's like imitating an electric guitar there. That's like a very classic sort of jazz vocal styling, imitating the sound of an instrument with the voice. That's something that great artists have done for a long time. And she's doing that here in a very modern way by imitating the electric guitar. Song number 4 is called That. I guess we'll find out what that is. Again, it feels very dreamy. Okay, cool. I love that she still does bridges. I have read that bridges have sort of fallen out of favor in a lot of popular music in recent years, so I'm glad. I mean, this was a few years ago, obviously, but I'm glad that it's there because it's a great emotional beat in this song. Specifically, Next to Your Heart is interesting because we usually think of the expression as someone being in someone else's heart to communicate love. I mean, I think it's still basically just supposed to signal us to love, but it feels like there's still a catch. Like, it's not exactly how you would imagine idyllic love. Song number 5 is an interlude called The Will to Survive. Hmm. Okay, so I'm feeling like a helicopter coming up. We have this sort of traditional wisdom that is presumably being recounted by someone with like deep cultural knowledge, it feels like, because of the invocation of the idea of the people. So she's sort of plumbing this history to talk about, I guess, a more intimate struggle. I don't know exactly where that struggle and her current relationship struggle line up, but I guess if we're going all the way back, we can think of it as like, people, or I guess specifically her people, have gone through struggles in general for so long, like, with the intensity of like lions fighting. So something as small as like a relationship struggle is something that she could overcome, which also makes sense in comparison to the way that she's using the apocalypse, the literal end of the world, to talk about very small, particular, intimate issues. But that's just my idea about it. All right, song number 6 is called Boss. Okay, so she's definitely taking more of a dominant role here. It seems like she's harnessing this power that she got from the interlude and using it in her relationships, because before she was all about submitting herself and proving herself to this person, and now she's saying, I have nothing left to prove, now I can just revel in the fact that this person is also dependent on her. Nice. Okay, so even more than just, I guess, flaunting and saying like, I have power over you. She's going beyond that and saying like, you have no power over me. I am actively resisting the ways that you have made me feel less than. Also, she talks about her new whip, and before she brought up the idea of a car as specifically serving the relationship through escapism, but now she's got her own whip. So if a car is a means of escape and she now has her own car, maybe she's escaping the relationship. Okay, so the vocals are a little bit distorted, but I heard she said, "You're going to spend forever wishing you were still with me." So, considering the context of like an apocalypse or a death, forever sort of has a different meaning. So, where the relationship is life, or I guess the life of Earth, then death is the end of the relationship. So everything after that is like an afterlife. So then forever is like the eternity of like an afterlife where, afterlife is after the relationship. Up next, track 7 is I Tried. Maybe piano ballad territory? Never mind. Okay, so this is basically tying back to where she was before, right? Giving everything I have and you're giving me nothing, which was the exact problem. Like, what she was sort of reclaiming with the car. Like, she was giving all her effort and her time to this person, and now she can have her own, and she's acknowledging this. And again, maybe this is just one of the steps that she's taking to ending the relationship. Wow. Wow. The passion in her voice is incredible. Okay, so this is amazing so far. Again, another wall of sound. I love the use of synths on this mixtape. This repetition sort of reminds me of like Final Wishes. Again, if we're working in this framework of like the relationship is life and the breakup is death, then the last thing she wants this significant other to know before they break up, before this metaphorical death, are these last wishes, right? I want you to know that I tried. Yeah. So she's first saying that it's such a tragedy she waited so long. So she's realizing that the relationship was bad and she should have ended it earlier. But she also said, I think, that she was going to be his wife, which that's a big change from then to now, right? If, they're on the verge basically of marriage or of, becoming engaged, to now being at such a bad place that she wished she had ended it earlier. That's a huge shift. And basically, within the confines of the relationship, an apocalyptic cataclysm. So we can also imagine that the mistreatment and the toxicity of the relationship was of a magnitude that would cause that significant of a change. Or at least her realization of how bad it was enough to spur this change. Song number 8 is Another Season. Okay, so now it seems like she's illustrating one of the particular instances in the relationship where she realizes how bad it is, because she's saying, "Don't ash it in my ride," which I imagine ties back to the smoking imagery, again, to the idea of the car as a sort of autonomy, because it's specifically her car. Because again, if she's saying it can lead up to a fight about something this small, that speaks to how ill-fitting the relationship is. But her mode on this song isn't quite pining and submissive or completely resistant and dominant. She's more somewhere in the middle where she is trying to make things work and she is pleading in that direction, but she's still irritated and knows that something's wrong. Okay, so back to like a storm. Okay, so that's where the title comes in, the idea of just another season. So it could be that there are cycles in the relationship. Before, she was talking about a storm coming, but the storm coming without warning. So maybe the storm, the breakup, is like the interruption in the cycle. So where we can imagine like the earth having its own cycles and those cycles being broken by an apocalypse, the cycles of the relationship are going to be broken by the apocalyptic breakup. Okay, so in this little distorted outro, she's talking about an elixir that's bringing her life, and that elixir is the love, but specifically because it's loving and not love, that signals us to the physical aspect of it and not the emotional aspect of it. But she still believes that it's the elixir of life, that it is the source of love. So maybe she just values that physical intimacy over other things, or she's basically fooling herself. Song number 9 is This Feeling. This is more like 90s R&B. Okay, she says he's totally got me, which again is her portraying herself as submissive. So even this deep into the mixtape, Tinashe's character is still struggling with the amount of power this guy has over her. Also, she mentioned the love as a dance, which can tell us two things. One, a dance is primarily physical, so again, the relationship is mostly physical, but also a dance can refer to like a charade or an act. So again, we get another signal to the fact that the love might not be genuine. Wow, this is another really gorgeous song. This mixtape is really uniformly beautiful. Track number 10 is Stumble. Would you ever choose the rocky road, the bumpy ride? Okay, that's an interesting question because so far she's talked about giving effort to the relationship. And again, this is another car metaphor, but specifically with her putting forth all of this energy and this person not reciprocating, she's wondering if this partner would abandon the comfort and luxury and lifestyle that she's talked about on other tracks, the things that have strengthened their relationship, and actually confront difficulties and actually make, substantial efforts for the relationship. Okay, that's true. Yeah, so again, she said, I took the bumpy road. I, put forth the effort, but, you didn't. So she's recognizing the inequality in the relationship, so maybe this will push her over the edge to make the decision to break up. Nice hook. Okay, so she just said, I surrender the fight. She's not going to put forth the effort anymore, which means the relationship is ending. She also mentioned before, how could someone so hot be so cold? Again, hot as in the physical aspect of the relationship, and her realizing that doesn't equal emotional satisfaction. Okay, so the title Stumble refers to her stumbling back into his arms, which, leave him, but also she's saying, I think we're about to fall, the collective we, as in, not fall into each other, fall in love, but more probably fall out of love, I hope, because, they need to already, because he's been mistreating her. We'll see what happens. Track number 11 is Crossing the Cosmo. Okay, so she mentioned the snow before she talked about him being cold, and again, we're returning to the cold motif. Again, like I talked about in my blood orange reaction video, is a pretty obvious metaphor usually for distance, for isolation, for emotional detachment and sadness. But that last line where she talks about lust and trust kind of feels like a warning, because lust isn't a word we use to describe unfettered love, and we also usually don't mention trust unless it's broken. Oh, that was interesting. So she said the burn inside. So again, 25,000 miles, the lengths that she would go for this person. But when she talks about burn, it's the warm versus cold aspect, right? So she was alone and she felt cold, and then when she was with this person, she felt warm. But it's different from warm because it's burning, it's destructive. Ooh, that's a great chorus. Okay, so this is basically Tinashe at her most desperate, saying, I will go to any lengths for you, despite basically the pain that she keeps hinting at or that she has described explicitly in prior songs. But also the title feels like an evocation of death, of crossing over. So the lengths that she's going to for this person might be killing her, metaphorically, of course. Song number 12 is another interlude called Fading. Okay, so this seems just to be an instrumental. So again, with the title and with the sound of this interlude, we get more of the idea that she's moving towards a death, the same way that crossing the Cosmo or like crossing over can be a death. Fading is another image of death. Song number 13 is Biding My Time. Okay, so before the piano faded and now her voice is fading back into the mix. She feels like she's weakening and losing her life force, which makes sense also with the lyrics, because with the title being Biding My Time and this verse being about a cyclical state of death, her staying with this person and trying to stretch out the time that they have together is again pretty clearly destructive. So this feels pretty mournful, like a crossing over, like I mentioned before. Track number 14 is another interlude called Heaven, which again confirms the idea that this is the moment of her crossing over or of the relationship ending. So this is really interesting, not as simple in its heaven-like nature as I would have expected. It's a little bit more discordant than you would expect from, a paradise. Okay, so with this being heaven, maybe the next track is the afterlife, where she has left him, where she promised before that he would be missing her, and we'll see how it maybe combines the idea of a post-breakup with an afterlife. So the final song on In Case We Die is Chainless. Okay, feels a little bit more club ready than I was expecting. Okay. Yeah, not what I was expecting. I was expecting something more in the vein of the sounds that were going on Heaven, but I guess this sort of makes sense, right? Like after a breakup, she's sort of feeling herself and wanting to show off. And specifically with the parallel between Chainless and Shameless, I think of her like breaking out of her mortal chains, where life was the relationship and the chains are related to life. Then she's breaking from the chains of the relationship and being a single woman. Okay, so she's saying if the world ends tonight, then at least we went hard. But I was under the impression that the world had already ended. So it may not be a literal moment in the story before that was leading up to this apocalypse, but more like a general emotional and tonal coda. So it's more like a last hurrah than a direct step in the story of life and death. But this also brings together the themes of the mixtape nicely because she's been trying to tie up loose ends and repair relationships. So the idea of ending life on a high note does fit sort of as a summary of what she's been saying since track number 1. Okay, so that was definitely more of a party song. And so in that way, I guess since she has been using like partying and smoking and like going out and feeling luxurious and rich as a sort of coping mechanism, maybe that's like as a character what she leans on as a sort of catharsis or as a sort of like spiritual experience. So then in that interpretation we can see like the afterlife, like the ideal for her would be like going out, getting high, being rich and partying. So that would probably signal us to the fact that the relationship has ended, she felt suppressed in the relationship, and now she can go and express herself and pursue the things that make her happy and that make her feel fulfilled, specifically because they are outside the parameters of what was available to her in this stifling, oppressive relationship. So that's my reaction to and analysis of In Case We Die. I loved this mixtape. I think Tinashe showed potential and a wide range of thematic and sonic interests right from the start. I'm really, really impressed. I cannot wait to listen to the mixtapes that she put out after this. So if you'd like to be here when I post those videos, please subscribe. Again, let me know in the comments below if you'd like me to react to any other albums or mixtapes or anything else. Thank you so much for being here, and until next time, that's it.